Second meditation, the means that those responsible for the education of children must use to procure their salvation. Second point. It is not enough that children remain in school for most of the day and be kept busy. Those who have dedicated themselves to instruct them must devote themselves especially to bringing them up in the Christian spirit, which gives children the wisdom of God, which none of the princes of this world has known. It is completely opposed to the spirit and wisdom of the world, for which you must inspire children with a great horror, because it serves as a cloak for sin. Children cannot be too much separated from such a great evil, for this alone can make them displeasing to God. So as we continue in this second meditation, he notes, Saint Salle notes that it matters what we keep our children busy with. They're not just being kept busy for the sake of being busy, so that they stay out of trouble, but also so that you teach them and they understand, what is trouble and what is not. What is going to be good for them and what is going to be harmful for their souls. And they have many influences in the world around them that can lead them astray, he says. And so that's what we want to do, is instill in them a horror, a dislike for those worldly things, and a great desire for things of God. Let this be your primary concern then, and the first effort of your vigilance in your work, to be ever attentive to your students, to forestall any action that is bad, or even the least bit improper. Help them avoid anything that has the slightest appearance of sin. It is also most important that your vigilance over your students serves to make them be self-controlled and reserved in church, and at the exercises of piety that are performed in school. For piety is useful in every way, and it gives a great facility for avoiding sin and for practicing other acts of virtue, because of the great number of graces it brings to those who have it. So he says we want to have vigilance in watching the children, and discipline is for the sake of helping them avoid sin, which is going to be harmful for their eternal salvation. It's not just for the sake of, I want to endure and get through this class and have them learn these things. Well, there's a greater, that might be true, but there's a greater purpose behind it. There's an eternal purpose, that we want to prevent them from falling into sin. And so then he says that's why we're instilling in them certain virtues like self-control, as well as a piety. He says especially pay attention to do this when during times of prayer, when we pray at school or when we're at Mass. I see this, teachers at different points have to, gently remind the children to not do certain things that are going to be disruptive at Mass, and it is good for us to do that. We want to assist them to be able to encounter God, especially through the sacraments, such an important place where they will meet Him. So he says to reflect upon this. Do you act in this way with your students? Adopt these practices in the future, and you will have not, if you have not been faithful enough in the past. So, in those moments when we're required to discipline a student in some way, to reflect upon, this is what I'm ultimately doing. And that'll help us to discipline them properly. Remember, I mentioned in the historical context of the Christian schools, Father Salle did away with the corporal punishment, which sometimes can be done out of the anger of the adult, and have a kind of unreasonable expectation sometimes on the child, knowing that, obviously we should have a high expectations for children, but depending upon their age level, we have to, be patient with them. And so having their eternal salvation in mind in this context can help us recall that what we're doing is ultimately we're trying to form them away from sin and toward a life of holiness. God bless.